This episode of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham brought to you by First Star Logistics. We catch up with offensive coordinator Brain Callahan. We talk about the interview process. He had opportunities to be head coach with the Colts, with the Cardinals. Not this year, but that process. Talked about what he learned and the process that involves. Talk about getting tweaks to the offense underway. No real sense of urgency there because there's so much continuity and consistency with the coaching staff and with the personnel. Talk about the combine, the draft. I mean, so many things, free agency. Got a lot of football that we're talking about with Brain Callahan, offensive coordinator extraordinaire. You're going to like every bit of it. Thanks for taking time to join us once again in the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always, in our outstanding studios. And a real good friend of In the Trenches joins us, offensive coordinator Brain Callahan. Coach, first of all, congratulations. I mean, I remember as a player when advancing to the Super Bowl like last year and not winning it, you fall off a cliff. Advancing to the AFC Championship game, not winning it, fall off a cliff. It's such a sudden ending. But when you have time to reflect, it's like, you know what? We had a pretty damn good season, and that's exactly the case. 2 years in a row, unbelievable seasons for the Cincinnati Bengals. Congratulations, sir.
Yeah, thank you. It was, it's a lot of fun when you think back and reflect on all the cool moments over the course of the year. Obviously, didn't end the way we wanted it to the last 2 years. I mean, we're still chasing after that trophy like everybody else is. But now we have a chance to regroup and try to do it again. But really got a tremendous amount of fun this year. Great group of players, awesome guys to be around, go to work with every day. And those are the things you appreciate again after you've stepped back from the season and you start to reflect on the good and the bad. And a lot more good this year than bad. And winning 10 straight to finish it off and back-to-back AFC Championship game appearances. That's a run of success that's hard to duplicate, and hopefully we can find a way to do it again.
Is that something that you're most proud of? I mean, probably the biggest accomplishment is following up, making it to the Super Bowl. That's hard, but to follow up the following season by getting to the AFC Championship game is equally as difficult, maybe even more so. Is that the biggest accomplishment in your eyes?
I just think to be able to sustain success in the NFL is one of the hardest things to do year to year. And I think that's why you marvel at the teams that have been able to do it, over history and to be in position to have a run of sustained success. I mean, obviously we feel great about these last 2 years and feel great about what's ahead of us. But sustained success to me is always the marker of a successful organization, a successful team. A lot of things got to go your way, got to go right. You got to be aligned from ownership all the way down. And we got a great setup here and a great group of players and a great group of coaches. And, we're positioned to be able to go have success again. Obviously, we got to go put the work in and do it. But I think sustained success is something that is very difficult in the NFL. And to be able to put 2 years back to back together that we have is something I'm obviously very proud of.
So at the end of the regular season, because not everybody makes the playoffs, obviously, just the cream of the crop does. But at the end of the regular season, 8th in total yards per game, 5th in passing yards, 8th in yards per pass attempt, 5th in first downs generated per game, 3rd on third down, 7th, most importantly, in points scored. I mean, that's a pretty good run right there in terms of being in the top 5, top 10 in significant offensive categories. And then you had individual performances, Pro Bowl possibilities with players, and some made the Pro Bowl. Individual efforts were there as well. It was really, really something to watch. I mean, what is the biggest challenge now? Is it still sustaining the success you did sustain from one year to another?
That's always the challenge, is to be able to replicate your previous success, because just because you had success in the past doesn't ever guarantee future success. And so that's always the mindset for the players when they come back for the offseason program when it starts here in a couple months. And you got to start over again, whether you win the Super Bowl or not. You start over every year, and you're in a race with 32 other teams to see how good you can be, how quickly. I think we learned a pretty tough lesson this year that ultimately, if you want to be the number one seed and you want to host playoff games and you want the playoffs to come through your town, then you got to play better early in the year. We didn't play great early this year for a number of reasons, but that's a thing where an area we can improve is starting faster to get the season off and running the way we need to. And then again, there's areas that we excelled in. There's areas that we can improve in, and there's areas that you want to continue that same line of success that we've had. So a lot of things that we can get better at, a lot of things that we'd like to be better in than we were. Obviously, you'd like to be top 5 in every category, but that's all. That's not always reality. But certainly, that's what we're striving for is to be in those spots, and hopefully, we'll have a chance to do that. Come the beginning of the next season. But a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of things to get done and accomplish in the meantime. A lot of short-range goals that we have to get accomplished between now and the beginning of the season. But looking forward to doing it again.
When you have a run of success like this franchise has had, everybody wants a piece of it. I mean, the NFL, everybody's like, "Oh, what are these guys doing? How are they doing it? Let's investigate this. Let's try to grab a little bit of this success." A good example is in this year's Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, 3 of their 4 coordinators are now gone. I mean, it's like now Kansas City would have been – the Bengals have head coach and coordinators returning for a 5th straight season. Kansas City would have been the same with Eric Bieniemy deciding to go, though, to Washington. It's not. Bengals are the only team that has their coordinators and head coach in place for the 5th year, and I think that continuity and that consistency is a big deal. There's no question about it. But the Bengals staff, because of the success, you had multiple head coaching opportunity for candidate interviews to move into a head coaching position. Lou Anarumo did, wide receiver coach did, quarterback coach did. I mean, to move up to coordinator roles in the National Football League. But everybody is still intact. So, I mean, the success, another year of success will probably be missing quite a few members of the coaching staff, but having that continuity and consistency, how big is that to try to sustain that level of success?
I think it's a huge part of it, for Joe Burrow to know that he's, nothing's changing around him. There's a comfort in that for players. I think the players appreciate having continuity because they know what they're going to get every day. We have really deep relationships with our players over years of work together, especially the guys like Tyler Boyd and, the guys that have been here for our whole tenure going in their 5th year together with us. And that's an edge, an advantage in a league that, you're searching for every possible one. And that's certainly one of them. And can't say enough good things about our staff, about the types of people we have, the teachers, the leaders. They're phenomenal coaches. And I think now that the rest of the league is starting to find that out a little bit, that they're a key part to our success is how well our staff works together, how talented we are. I think as a whole, we got a great individual coaches and teachers and a great collective group effort to put our guys in position to go win games. And it's a place I love coming to work every day. And, those opportunities to advance your career come when you have success. They're just like MVPs and Pro Bowls, and it's their individual accolades that are usually a result of a lot of people doing their job really, really well over a sustained period of time. And that's players, coaches included. And so it's an honor to be in those conversations for all of us that have chances to move up. But ultimately, we know that, we're the sum of our parts. Here it's a huge advantage to have all of our guys back and ready to roll and try to sustain the success we've had over the last 2 years.
I think an interesting football phenomenon with the Cincinnati Bengals is Zach Taylor, Brain Callahan, Dan Pitcher, Joe Burrow, all their dads were football coaches. You guys are cut from the same cloth. I mean, the DNA is so strong amongst you 4 guys working together every single day. I mean, it's like a football family, big time, literally and figuratively. How big is that?
Well, I think when you grow up in a coaching family, there's just things you're exposed to probably at a younger age than anybody else in the profession, and you start to learn a lot about what it is to be a football coach, what it means to be part of a staff and a team. And you're just a lot of it through osmosis of just being around and watching and learning for a lot of years before you ever actually enter into the profession yourself. And so I just think you see all of us have such a unique experiences that really have been around football for most of our entire lives in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's a benefit to us. And I think we all know what it takes to win. We know how to put guys in position to win matchups, to win plays, to win the down. And then we got a great rapport amongst ourselves where our ideas are free flowing. There's no ego involved. And we all know that that's the key to success anyway, is, when you don't really care about who's getting all the credit, you tend to be able to do some pretty great things. And, those things, the external credit takes care of itself when you win. All the spotlight gets put on your staff and your players when things are going well. There's not a whole lot of head coaching candidates from teams that went 2-14. Not that those guys are bad coaches. That's just the way the league works. And so we've just got a great rapport here and a great group of guys. It's really fun to be a part of, and we all understand each other very well.
The process of interviewing to be a head coach in the National Football League, I think, has to be almost an exhausting preparation. I mean, getting ready for that interview, you probably feel like you cannot put enough time into it, even if you put 24 hours of the day into it. What's it like getting ready for those type of interviews, and how different or similar are the interviews from organization to organization? More similar than different, or more different than similar?
They're probably more similar than different. I thought the Indianapolis process was really unique and interesting. It was good to go through. I do think there's an element of experience in interviews. It's just like any football play you run. The more experience and more reps you get at it, the better you tend to perform it. And so I feel a lot better about my experiences, having interviewed now 3 different times over the last 2 years. You feel a lot better about what the process looks like. You feel a lot more confident in the process. And ultimately, you don't control the outcome. So you just do your best to put the best representation of yourself out there, and let those people that make decisions make those decisions. And it is a year-long process. It's really you spend more time on it in the off season when you have more time to focus on it. But you're certainly always trying to refine it, what you're going to communicate, how clearly you can communicate it. Talking to guys around the league, you try to get feedback from the interview process itself and try to improve that process too. And but it's a year-long. You try to get a lot of it done before the season starts, because once the season starts, there's no real preparation for it. You hope to be ready for that, and you try to get staffing things figured out. And every year the staffing picture changes because guys are under contract and have different jobs, and guys move up, and so it's kind of a constant evolving process that you just continue to work through over every off season, and you hope that at some point someone decides that they want to hire you as their head coach. And but again, you put a lot of work and a lot of time into it to try to show yourself the best way possible. And I feel really confident about those things that I've done and put myself in the positions I've been in. But at the end of the day, like I said, you don't control any of it, and you just hope that somebody gives you an opportunity at some point.
Here in Cincinnati, obviously, Mike Brown is a hands-on owner. I mean, he doesn't have other conglomerates and businesses, and this football team's just his hobby. This is his life, the Cincinnati Bengals, from in every standpoint. So he's always involved in these interviews for head coaches. In terms of other interviews that you've been on now, 3 in the last 2 years, like you say, are owners usually there, or is it really not necessarily the case? Obviously there's general managers there. Is it the same type of personnel that you're interviewing with, or does that vary from organization to organization as well?
I think it can still vary. In my experiences in the 3 I've been on, obviously Denver was in the process of changing ownership when I interviewed there last year. So there was no owner to speak of at the moment that they were certain who it was going to be. So they weren't involved in it. But both Mr. Bidwell and Mr. Ursa spent time with both of them in Arizona and Indy. And I think that's more traditional. But again, those guys are also lifelong footballers too, like Mr. Brown is. And so they've been a part of the businesses for a long time. They inherited it from their fathers. They have a lot of experience in the league. And so it's great to get in front of those guys and get to know them, get to hear other ownership thoughts and feelings. But, I think we certainly have one of the best here as good of a organizational alignment and from top to bottom that I've been around. It's been fantastic. And so you get a real appreciation for how well it's run here too when you interview other places as well. You look back and you think about this is really the model to me on what it's supposed to look like. And I think our play on the field has reinforced that. But this is a phenomenal place to work.
Dave Lapham here. And if you're looking for a new and exciting work opportunity, check out one of the fastest growing companies in Cincinnati, First Star Logistics. All you have to do is scan the QR code or visit us at firststarlogistics.com to learn more. So you're in the process now. I know you got a little bit of time to kind of get away from it all and recharge the battery as such, a little R&R. You look great, by the way. I mean, it looks like the time was well spent on a nice beachfront.
Sure
But
was.
yeah, now you come back, and nothing better than spending time on the beach with family, and no question about that. But now you come back, and here's the combine. I mean, we're right in the midst of the combine. So starting the process for the draft, and the draft will take place at the end of April. But March 15th is free agency, and now you've got Adamitis was just re-signed, so he's off the list. But you got a good number of players, 18 players, I think it still is out there, and Joe Burrow will start the process to sign Joe Burrow potentially, hopefully, as quickly as possible, and get that part of the budget all taken care of. So with all of that's going on, I mean, there's a lot of work that you guys are doing, a lot of things being worked on. What's the step-by-step process? I mean, how are you prioritizing what you need to do, and you still have a compressed time to do it because you did play in the conference championship game, but less than the year before when you ended up going all the way to the Super Bowl, that was even more compressed. Is it helpful to have that experience this year, knowing how to get things done in even a more timely fashion than you almost have to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were really probably 3 weeks behind the rest of the league, between us, Kansas City, Philly, and San Francisco. Our four teams are well behind the rest of the offseason process. I think most teams had probably been on vacation and home by the time we started getting ready for the AFC Championship game. So
right.
Everybody's ahead of us, and so that's part of the battle you fight when you play deep into the playoffs, as we do. But it's a problem that we like to have. But it is part of the process, and so we really transitioned from this period for probably the next 60 days or so. It's really just focused on player acquisition. We've done the scheme. We've been together for 7 months. This is going into year 5. Our scheme stuff is not as pressing a process for us at this point. It's all about catching up to the rest of the league on the coaching side of free agency, how we see them, and then the draft and the combine obviously are huge parts of that as well. We start the pro day circuit coming up. All the Zoom interviews you can do with these college prospects, really got to get to know them. And one of the reasons why I think we've been so good here is we've really nailed our draft process over the last 4 years. And I think that's a huge testament to, how our coaching staff works in conjunction with our personnel staff and allows us to really find the right pieces. And that's where we're at right now. We have to have another really great draft. And we have to have another good free agency period. Obviously, it's going to look a little different this year because of we're trying to pay our own guys as opposed to going out and paying others. But, we still have free agents we got to get nailed down and get that process figured out. And thankfully, our Steve and Mike Potts and Duke and those guys are already on all that personnel stuff well in advance of us. And so we're just playing catch up to them, and they're catching us up as the process moves along. But, free agency starts pretty quickly. The combine's coming up. And so we transition fully into the player acquisition part of the offseason. It's a hugely important piece to how we function here and what we do as a coaching staff. And so we'll pour ourselves into that really for the next 2 months until the draft is over.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible process. The thing that's great though, for Bengals fans and everybody that has a deep interest in the Bengals organization, it's a destination now. I mean, there's you want to re-sign your own wants to re-sign. I mean, they want to stay in Cincinnati if at all possible. And then free agents that are out there in the marketplace, they look at Cincinnati as, top 3 place to go. It's a destination. We want to be part of what's going on with the Bengals. They got Joe Burrow at quarterback. They've gone to the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row. They've been to the Super Bowl. I mean, my gosh, man, I got to get there. So it's like, at least you have more pieces of a puzzle to try to fit into your puzzle in terms of there's always somebody where, if an organization didn't do a good job in their salary cap, a guy's on the market. It's like, what the heck is that guy doing out there? Well, they had to cut him loose, and now all of a sudden it's like, boy, do we stay with our own? Do we go with this guy? We're not expecting this guy to be out there. And is that part of it too, is the study of, like Duke and all his people studying the teams and who might, be caught in a salary cap situation or whatever the case may be in terms of free agency?
Yeah, that's all part of the process. You try to project guys that might be cap casualties elsewhere, guys that are good veteran players that, that are going to have a choice of where they want to go. And, in free agency, at the end of the day, it's still a business, and money talks. Guys want to get paid, and rightfully so. But sometimes you find guys that are at points in their career where they would rather join a team and be in a place where they want to be and are excited to be, and the money isn't as important as it can be for guys coming into, especially their first foray into free agency. So understand all sides of it, but our personnel guys do a great job, Steve Radicevic in particular, of having a great awareness of the league and who's out there, who's available, what they might cost. Obviously, those things are going to start, those conversations start happening at the combine as the market starts to form, and you start hearing and seeing what is available out there financially. Now that you got the cap number officially out there as well, that budget starts to take shape. And so that's not something that I have a whole lot of involvement in, but our personnel guys do such a great job of setting the table for us. And then we come in and evaluate and decide who fits us best. That's kind of how we found Hayden Hurst last year. And because we know CJ decided to go to the Jets, and we had a tight end need, and we kind of put our minds together and watched the tape together and found a guy like Hayden who really thrived when he came here. So that's all part of the process. We're trying to find every avenue we can to improve the team, because obviously we came up short of our goal and need to find some guys that can help us get over the hump and get a chance to hoist that trophy.
With Adam Midas signing, 18 guys become free agents on March 15th. Of course, Joe Burrow's contract is able to be extended, so he becomes a big number 19 there. There's no doubt about that. Offensively, there's 7 players by my count. All 3 of your tight ends. You mentioned Hayden Hurst. Drew Sample is out there potentially, as well as Mitchell Wilcox. So I mean that tight end scenario is going to be an interesting one to follow. It's always very, very intriguing to me to see the process, of how a team is it's like a big puzzle. You disassemble it, and then there's going to be core pieces you put in, but then you have to put a bunch of other pieces. How's that all going to fit? It really is interesting, and it starts here pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's every year you're going to have guys that you want to re-sign. There's going to be guys that are going to go into free agency and get much more money than you're willing to spend at that particular time, and good for them. That's what you want. You want guys to play well enough and have success and get a chance to go get paid. And a guy like Hayden Hurst, for example, takes a 1-year deal, bets on himself to some degree, and hopefully we get him back. I know we'd love to have him back, but again, the business part of it's the whole other side, and he may have made himself quite a bit of money. Who knows? And for his sake, I hope he gets what he wants out of it, or maybe he just wants to be here for whatever that means for him. And so that's every year. It doesn't ever change. There's always going to be guys you want that leave. There's going to be guys that you think you can sign that you can't. And then there's going to be guys that show up like Hayden Hurst did last year that maybe you get in the third wave of free agency that really end up helping your team. And so you never panic on any side of it, and you just try to do your due diligence and find the best players to bring in. And, obviously, I don't deal with the money part of it, but that's also a big piece of the puzzle. And so obviously when you got a guy like Joe, who's contract extension eligible this year, hope that gets worked out soon and is what is agreeable on all sides. Obviously you hope, but for a guy like Joe, you hope he gets paid all the money that he deserves, because he certainly deserves a lot of it. And when those things come up, that gets finalized and you move on to the next piece, whatever that ends up looking like for us. And obviously, we've drafted well, and that's a testament to Duke and his staff and our coaching staff involved in that process. And when you got a lot of your own guys that are up to pay, that's also a good problem to have. That means you've drafted well and they perform well and you've coached them well. And sometimes they come up and they enter free agency, and that's great. Sometimes you get a chance to re-sign them, and that's great too. So that's kind of the era we're coming up upon now, is that a lot of the guys that we've drafted and have played well are approaching free agency and approaching extension eligibility. And, you want to pay your own when you get a chance to.
The quarterback position, and you were a quarterback, you understand how important the quarterback position is. In my mind, it's fascinating. I think the NFL is at a crossroads. I mean, I think the NFL is in a seismic shift period kind of thing with respect to, because of the Deshaun Watson deal that was done in Cleveland, $230 million, and they guaranteed all of it. Right now, it's an outlier, but there are so many quarterbacks out there that are looking for their payday. And okay, which owner, which team is going to step up and say, I'm guaranteeing yours as well? Because then an outlier becomes a trend, and somebody else is doing it. And man, I mean, Coach, back in the day, in 1974, when I was a rookie, $50,000, man, that dude's making a ton of money. Now It's 50 million, I mean, now it's like, the league has exploded. It's crazy. But I mean, the quarterback position, this is a critical time period, evolution of the National Football League. It's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a push for a handful of years now to include more guaranteed money, similar to from the player side, similar to the NBA and Major League Baseball and the sports where they guarantee all these contracts. And they're a huge part of the process of the league. I mean, these guys are faces of franchises, and just look at the impact that Joe Burrow's had on the city of Cincinnati. They're economic drivers. These guys are worth every penny that you have to pay them. And I understand the guaranteed money argument on the other side. Football is different because of the injury portion of it. So on the team side, you see why teams don't necessarily want to jump into guaranteeing large contracts for injury purposes and things like that. That is still part of the business. But, I think you're going to see more guaranteed money these days being shelled out. Now, whether it's all fully guaranteed or not, we'll see how it shakes out. But I do think you're going to see more guys want more guaranteed money, and for their sake, rightfully so. I hope they all get it. It doesn't come out of my pocket. So
yeah, right. I mean, I agree about the guarantee. I'm just, boy, who's the next owner or the next organization that is going to fully guarantee a contract and make that, oh boy, now we got another one. And Atlanta, it sounded like Atlanta was like they were fully ready to do it with Deshaun Watson, and Cleveland did it, and Atlanta was like, hey, we would have done that. And so there's always going to be somebody out there. It's going to be very interesting to see who's going to be next, who's next up in that regard.
I think they're going to see. I'd be surprised to see fully guaranteed, but I think you're going to see a lot of these guys get quite a bit of guaranteed money, particularly the quarterbacks. As they start coming on, there's a bunch of them that are going to get paid, I think, this offseason, and that'll be fascinating to follow.
Let me get you out of here on this, Coach. You addressed it a little bit. Down there, you guys have the continuity of the entire coaching staff almost together, all the coordinators together for 5 years, and a good part of the coaching staff together for that duration, and Joe at the quarterback position. So in terms of, okay, let's indoctrinate this new thing to our offensive schematic, and didn't like this that much. That's down the road a ways. That's not something that is, I mean, you look around the league, new coordinators that don't have a quarterback to work with. I mean, how the hell do you get something done there? Whereas you guys on the other side of that spectrum, and I don't know how they can't get things installed for a reason that's like, wow, that's brutal. You guys can take your time because you have such continuity and consistency.
Yeah, that's where the advantage comes in for us. We don't have we are going to be indoctrinating a lot of new players on either side of the ball. There's always going to be some. There's always going to be young players and new players that come up. But even last year, I think, in the skill position, it was really just Hayden Hurst was really the only new player we had to catch up. And it really allows you to hit the ground running when you start. Obviously, we'll do our due diligence. We'll study all of the major areas we study every year. That process never changes. You still kind of go through all those steps, find out the things you think you can improve on. And year to year, things change. Sometimes concepts that were good 2 years ago really weren't good for us this past year. And you try to figure out why. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there isn't, but you try to go through that process every year. And then you still do study the league when you can. You try to see what people are doing, what's out there that's unique. When you watch all these college prospects, you start to see some of the things in college football that are people are doing and having success with, and it allows you to integrate some things that maybe you think will help and improve your offense to some degree. And so it's, our scheme changes are never going to be dramatic at this point because we've got so much scheme. There's not a lot that we're missing,
right.
And we got a lot of reps invested in all of it, and that's always really important. And so we'll find things to tweak and add, and we'll prioritize some things and deprioritize others that weren't good. But that process will kind of be ongoing for me, intermixed with all the personnel stuff. I'll take some time to do some other scheme stuff. But, our players won't come back till April, mid-April, late April, and we got plenty of time for the scheming between April and August as well. So not a lot of stress for us there. And again, a lot of repetition involved, a lot of things that our guys have done well for a number of years now. So we're excited about getting back to work when it's time.
Coach, great to catch up. Selfishly, it's great to have you staying and being a part of what's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, it's one of the best operations in the National Football League. There's no question. But you deserve to be and should be the head coach in the National Football League, and that's coming quickly. And if it doesn't, should be an investigation. Something's wrong.
Well, thanks, Lap. I appreciate that. And again, this is such a great place to be and work that it doesn't really stress me out too much, because I get to come back and live in a great city and work with a bunch of great people and get to do interviews on the Dave Lapham in the Trenches podcast, which
you're the man, Coach.
Highlights, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to have to use that. Boy, yeah. You are my marketing hero.
Yeah, I'll do what I can.
You're the best, sir. I appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Have the best day you ever had.
Appreciate it.
Here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.